forestry sector is going to be included in this in terms of maybe a push to try to get people to plant more trees, and in western South Dakota you can kind of name those trees out there. So I thought that was a good quote by you. But
well, that's true, and I think that there are obviously areas in the country that can benefit more than others from what's being proposed in terms of climate change. But I want to come back to the fundamental point, and don't miss this. You just heard it here. We cannot quantify the benefits. Nobody knows. Nobody knows about the offsets. Nobody knows how what kind of benefit we might derive from this. Everybody knows what it's going to cost. We all know it's going to cost. It's going to cost in higher input for diesel, for electricity, for everything that you use to make a living in this state. Now, the 2.8 million acres that are already in no-till in South Dakota, I hope could be grandfathered under a bill. I'm not convinced of that when this thing moves through the Senate. And you have to remember who is writing these bills. These are bills that are going to be written by the leadership in the House and the Senate, which right now are mostly in the hands of people from California and liberals. You got Nancy Pelosi is going to be driving this in the House. Barbara Boxer is the chair of the Environment and Public Works Committee in the Senate, which will produce the bill. And so these bills, as they move through the process, are going to move further and further to the left. And so if we end up with a cap-and-trade program that we don't really know whether or not it's going to benefit the environment, because we know one thing, and that is that India and China, at the last meeting of all the international players, basically said, we're not going to follow suit. And so, you know, they're not going to be implementing the same types of cap-and-trade policies that we are, or trying to realize reductions in CO2 emissions in the atmosphere. So we're going to be doing all this. We're going to go through all these machinations. They're going to put all these higher costs. And again, remember, everybody has a different estimate of what this is going to cost. The Congressional Budget Office said in the year 2020 it would cost the average family about $890 more for electricity than it does today. That's a CBO estimate. That is the low end. There are lots of estimates that I mentioned earlier from folks that I've talked to across South Dakota who think it's going to be much higher than that. So can we benefit? Yes. And if this thing passes, I hope that we will get every provision in the bill possible to allow South Dakota agriculture to benefit from any types of offset programs that might be included. But I don't believe for a minute that we're going to get those types of provisions in this bill. And I know one thing with certainty. If this bill passes, your electricity costs, your diesel costs, your home heating fuel, your natural gas, everything is going to go up. Think of fertilizer. Fertilizer is capped under this. And so not only are you going to pay higher costs for natural gas, which is used to make fertilizer, but fertilizer is also capped under the bill. And so they're going to have to pay the same types of, they're going to have to buy credits and pay for their emissions in the same way that some of the other emitters are. So we need to proceed really, really carefully on this. And as I said before, I will do everything I can to stop the bill that passed in the House of Representatives. And I think before we move down this path, we ought to know, with a little more certainty, we ought to be able to quantify what the benefits are, because we know what the costs are.
Respond a little bit. Look, you know my position. I voted against the House bill, and I'm sure I'm really glad Senator Thune's going to do all he can to prevent the House bill from moving through the Senate. The House bill has no chance of passing the Senate in its current form. Okay, Nancy Pelosi's from California. Barbara Boxer's from California. That's true. But Senator Bingaman is from New Mexico, Senator Dorgan's from North Dakota, and in their committee, they've already looked to marry a climate and energy bill, which I would have preferred the House to do. Senator Dorgan offered an amendment that passed that would open up the outer continental shelf to drilling for natural gas so that we can increase supply and bring down costs, going right at the heart of the concern that I share, that Senator Thune shares, that all of you share. As these bills get written, they move to the center because they can't get votes unless you appeal to moderate Democrats. There are more moderate Democrats in the Senate than there ever have been. I would hope that this could be bipartisan. But Tim Johnson and Byron Dorgan and Kent Conrad aren't going to vote for the House bill just like I didn't. And sure, you might have leaders like Henry Waxman from California and others that start way to the left. But I tell you what, from where that draft started in the House to where it ended up, because they had to deal with moderate Democrats on the House Agriculture Committee like me, some of whom voted for it, and I think regret their vote because it wasn't as good as we could have gotten and negotiated. I just take issue with the characterization of how Senator Thune has described the process. Don't be so scared just because Democrats are in charge. There are moderate Democrats that are the vote getters